Turning our attention to the international papers now. Elena's with us here on set. We've been focusing a lot on Syria today, especially on the still unknown whereabouts of the French journalist Edith Bouvier. What are the international papers saying about this?
Well, there's a lot of front pages on this, as you might imagine, and also in Britain a lot on the Sunday Times photographer Paul Conroy, who has got out of Syria safe and sound, and is now in Lebanon. But as The Guardian says on its front page, 13 Syrian activists were killed trying to get him out of the country, which does, of course, leave The Guardian asking, what an awkward position journalists put themselves in when Syrian activists end up sacrificing their own lives when they came under fire from Assad's troops in order to try and get the wounded British journalists out of the country alive and well. There's also an interesting article inside The Guardian looking at some of the campaign groups who helped get him out. They're looking at a group called Avaz, who are kind of what they call a collectivist online group who are getting involved in real-life political engagement. They were started apparently by a British-Canadian dual national and have offices all around the world, and originally sort of just groups people together online to get to do things like click on a link and sign an online petition against things like George Bush's policies on climate change, or to protest against Murdoch's News of the World at a time when its phone hacking was in all the front pages. But what have they got to do with getting Paul Conroy out of Syria? Well, they've moved, The Guardian reports, from that sort of online getting people to click on links to actually getting people to raise money, which they've used to buy satellite phones and communications equipment, and then supplied them to the Syrian rebels to help them communicate, obviously. So the Guardian says it's quite an interesting example of how online activism has become real-life political engagement, enabling people who are thousands of miles away from Syria to help the effort there.
Also got various diplomatic efforts going on, haven't we, to try and ease the situation in Syria. What are the papers talking about there?
Well, they're not being very flattering to the international community. Look at this cartoon from Gulf News, which has the rest of the world, sitting on a rocking horse, rocking forwards and backwards and going nowhere in the direction of Syria. So there you go, there it is.
There it is, got there in the end.
Got there eventually. So the New York Times, though, in its editorial says that it's really enough, which really, we've had enough of this rocking around and going nowhere. We should start arming the Syrian rebels. They say in that article we have to look at some home truths on Syria, which for them means that it's going to get worse before it gets better. And yes, it is going to degenerate into sectarian and ethnic conflict, as the Alawite group are increasingly associated by other ethnic groups with the murderous regime, and as a result, people are starting to take their grievances out on Alawite civilians in areas that are outside the control of Assad's troops. They say even though this sort of fear of sectarianism might seem like a strong argument for not arming the Syrian rebels, actually we have to. We've reached a point where we can't allow Bashar al-Assad to continue massacring civilians like this. And actually, the National reports that if foreign countries aren't going to arm the Syrian rebels, some people are actually profiting from doing so. They've been investigating the Lebanese arms merchants who are shipping arms into Syria. Of course, there's quite a lot of arms around in Lebanon after their 15-year civil war, but apparently the going price for a rocket-propelled grenade has doubled in the last year, and the street price of an AK-47 in Lebanon has gone from $1,000 to $2,300 just because of the exploding demand coming out of Syria.
Something else, US primaries, Romney risked a bit of an upset, didn't he?
He did, and that's really what the papers are focusing on, not on his victory, but that it wasn't a bigger and easier victory in his own home state. The New York Times says that Santorum, if you like, has found a vein to attack Romney, which will be convenient for the Obama campaign later on. And effectively, that's how wealthy he is, and his own connection to the very wealthy. He's had to admit that he made some mistakes in Michigan, like his saying he was friends with NASCAR team owners and that his wife owned 2 Cadillacs, and there's his opposition to the GM bailout, which is really popular in Michigan. So the paper's saying that's going to be an easy way for the Obama campaign to attack him in November.
And talking of the really wealthy, a study proving what we've always expected, of course, the rich, they're meaner than the rest of us.
That's according, apparently, the Huffington Post says. They also lie more, cheat more, and they break more laws. They drive more badly. All of this is according to a study apparently carried out by the University of California, where they asked people to participate in different experiments where they'd had to pretend what they would do in different work situations, like whether or not you would lie to an employee about whether he might get made redundant. And apparently the people who grew up in wealthier backgrounds were found to find it much more easy to lie and to cheat.
We all knew that, really, didn't we? Sorry if you got a big pay packet. I don't mean really. All right, Elena, thanks very much. Elena there with the international papers here on France 24.